Greetings, comic friends. As many of you know, CGC released an announcement earlier this week talking about how they are having changes to their services, their pricing, and just sort of their general tier structure. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, not just as far as the announcement itself is concerned, but what effect it has on people such as myself or businesses such as those that I run, probably some other entities, maybe comic book shops that do a lot of grading with comic books they get in to resell, or those out there that just kind of do slabbing and reselling. I only do a little bit of that, not a whole lot. So I'm going to not talk about that as much. I'll stay sort of in my area of expertise and how it affects those, particularly in my position as a comic book presser that also sends customers' books off to be graded as part of a package deal for their service, right? I get a lot of people that will send me stuff to get worked on and they want it graded, and I'll handle the submitting it to CGC or CBCS or whoever on their behalf. And it has had quite the effect on myself with the current orders and customers I have, and I presume it's had a similar effect to other pressers out there. So first, to start with just the changes. I was going to be doing a CGC versus CBCS comparison video, and I know there's plenty of them out there, but I was going to kind of have my take on it. And I'm glad I didn't do it yet, because these changes would have a fairly significant effect on that comparison. So I can do it now, and hopefully it will still be valid for quite a while. So I'm glad I didn't put the time into doing that, because I assume it's going to take a while to put all that together and put my thoughts together on it. So let's start with looking at the changes we have, or that CGC has. So the first one they talk about is their memberships. So before, what I think there were, I can't remember if there were 4. I don't know if you really count free. But the ones that are the most interesting, the difference between the two are the differences are the premium and the elite. The premium membership, I think, is kind of the go-to one for anyone that does any amount of grading. It's sort of the bare minimum, because it's essentially free, because you pay $150 for it, but you also get $150 in credit. So if you're going to be sending in at least $150 worth of stuff to be graded in 1 year, it's worth it. The thing that's missing from this, the big significant thing that's missing from this, is that you no longer get a discount on grading. It used to be 10%. This 10% is off the CGC store, which, if you're not familiar with it, is where they have these shipping kits and comic window bags. So this is for like signings and stuff, and like you can make these. You can get boxes and packing material. So I've never used this stuff. I don't think many people do, but it is there. So you get 10% off that, which isn't really that big of a deal. And then, but the thing that's missing is you no longer get 10% off grading, which was really good, right? Even though it was essentially a free membership, given the credit, it was incentive to send more stuff in, because you're getting 10% off every single time. For me, and as far as the business is concerned, I'd get that 10% off, And I would pass that on to the customers, right? So I'd get, what was normally a modern tier would cost $20. It would then be $18. And that's what the customer, my customer would pay. I wouldn't take that 10% off the top. I just pass that on to onto my customers. I can no longer do that, right? I can no longer give them the 10% discount off of grading because I don't get it. So I can't pass that on for this particular tier. If you move to the elite, you see a similar difference where this does have 10% off grading tiers, but this used to be 15%. So it's been reduced by 5%. You still get the 150 credit, so this is essentially you're paying 150. So in order for this now 10% off to be worth paying the extra $150, that means you have to spend $1,500 on grading just to break even. And just to give some perspective, that would be based with the new pricing structure. I guess with the new pricing structure, it's easier to get there, if that's one advantage. But you'd have to grade roughly, let's say, like 70-ish, 65 to 70 modern books in 1 year, which for some places I'm sure is worth it. People that focus just on flipping books, getting books and grading them and flipping them, maybe comic shops do that amount. But that is a lot. 70 books is a lot. I don't know if I personally do 70 books a year. I doubt that I would get there. Through customers and whatnot. Yeah, I'll hit that 70. But how do I want to say this? While I am more than happy to pass on any savings I get afforded me by a membership, I'm not going to pay extra out of my pocket to give that discount, right? I was 100% okay paying the $150, getting a 10% off and passing it on to my customers. It was fine. But if I'm not getting anything back from that discount, then it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense for me to pay for to pay an extra $150 to give that discount, right? When it's just pass through. If that makes sense. I mean, it's something that I might do. I haven't fully decided yet, because I do want to be able to offer the best things that I can for my customers. It's just business-wise doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for a business to pay money to give customers a discount at another business, I guess. So, yeah, at this point, I mean, this full access to online resources, I have no idea what that means. But in order to even submit things at all, you have to be associate and pay $25. You have to pay $25 for the privilege of using their services, which is ridiculous to me. That'd be like myself as a presser being, whoa, before you even get in the door, you have to pay me $25 to even think about doing work for you. That's ridiculous to me. So that's the changes in tiers. Now, they have said that if you've already paid your membership, you get the old membership benefits until it expires, but when you renew, it goes under the new ones. No one's grandfathered in or anything like that. The other big change is the grading tiers themselves and the costs. So they've essentially they've removed a tier, right? So it used to be modern value economy standard. Now it's modern economy standard. So basically the value and economy tier have been merged into one. The max value of both was 400. Was 400 for economy and 200 for value. So now it's just 400. Value was $27. Economy is $38. So what this means is if you were value before, you now have to bump up to economy. Now, this is where there's a little bit of a this is where it's definitely a disadvantage, right? You have to bump up your tier, which costs more. On the flip side of that, if you were economy, right, the same thing still apply for economy. If you were in economy tier, that is a maximum of 400, you're still in economy tier, but it's cheaper, right? Economy tier was 38, now it is 33. So economy tier is cheaper, but the other side of that, of course, is if you would have been in value and only paying $27, you're now in economy and paying $33. And I feel that there's definitely more books that fall under value than economy. Right? So the majority of submissions are going to cost more, while a minority of submissions are going to cost less. So it's still obviously in their favor. Express, let's see, standard went up a little bit. Express, I believe, was at 100. It's now at 120. The walkthrough is still at 3%. Right? Express was 100. That went up. That went up. Walkthrough is still 3%. They're not mentioning the minimum here. It might be increased. I'm not sure. And then CCS is the pressing stuff, which I'm not really going to go to, but I will mention CCS here in a second. So for the most part, it's price increases for most things. Again, aside from economy has gone down a little bit, but with the trade-off of value, things that were value are being is more. Now, one thing I do want to also talk about, there's a lot of debate and confusion on this. I saw a lot of people saying like, oh my gosh, they've gotten rid of pre-screening. Pre-screening being when you send things in, you can say, hey, these books, if they don't hit a certain grade, 9.8, something like that, then they won't slab it. There's a $5 fee for their time, and they return the book to you raw. I saw all over Instagram, it's like, oh my gosh, they've gotten rid of pre-screening for modern books, which would be huge, right? Because I think pre-screening in modern, or modern is probably the thing that's pre-screened the most. Putting together big groups of things to send in and have pre-screened at 9/8. This is not the case. So there was an image going around, which was either from the original FAQ and it had since been updated because of the confusion, or someone out there was trying to cause confusion by nearly copying what's in the FAQ. So what kind of got shown was this, for the most part, saying CCS screen is no longer available for modern tier comics, or we're saying like screening is no longer available for modern tier comics and magazines. All other comic magazine teams can be submitted for screening, with the fee still being 1% of the fair market value, with a new minimum fee of $15. The confusion being that CCS and CGC are not the same thing. CCS is CGC's comic pressing business. And when you send things in for pressing, they had their own screening service that you could have them do, and they would give you their thoughts on whether or not it was worth pressing or getting restored. So a couple of indicators here that this does not apply to that actual pre-screening is, first of all, CCS is not CGC. Also, they're saying the screening fee still being 1%. Pre-screening was never 1%. It was $5 was the pre-screening fee. But I think this got manipulated and people were trying to throw gas in the flames and make it sound like they were taking away pre-screening for modern books. Not the case. I got confused as well. I saw some of that stuff and the way it was presented. And the people that shared it, I'm not saying they were being malicious. They were in the same boat where they got it from someplace and were trying to pass along information. But once you kind of stopped and looked at it and thought about it, like, wait, there's something weird about this. This is not same as pre-screening. They have, I believe, since added to the fact for clarification. Is grade pre-screening still available? Yes, grade pre-screen is available. It doesn't say anything about omitting modern or anything. Everything's still available, but it is now $8 as opposed to $5. So pre-screening still there, but it is costing $3 more per pre-screen. So want to make sure that we debunk that information, that misinformation that was out there for a couple of days. All right. So thoughts on this. I mean, aside from, price increases for everyone except for the company suck, right? You have to pay more. Don't want to do it, but it happens. Price increases happen. I understand. That being said, I don't get it. I think this was a real bad move by CGC. They're seeing this higher demand because of the market and the way that the market is. They're getting flooded. They're seeing an opportunity of, hey, more people are sending stuff in. This is a chance for us to make even more money, which it's like, I mean, your volume is making you more money, right? That if increased volume doesn't increase your profits, then there's something wrong. Your model's wrong. The way that you are your profit margin or whatever is wrong. And I can't imagine that's the case with CGC because they will take money however they can, right? CGC has these, it's these membership fees, right? Even walk in the door, you have to pay $25. For submissions, for each tier you submit, you have to pay $5 just for nothing. You just have to pay $5. So if I send in a group of modern books, doesn't matter how many, I send in a group of modern books, on top of what it costs to grade those, it's just, also $5. If I send in a group of modern books and economy books, doesn't matter how many there are, well, we're going to charge you $5 because there's modern books, and we're going to charge you another $5 because there's economy books. If you need to make a change, right, you submit your order and you want to make a change, they charge you $15 for it. Any changes to an existing order that hasn't even been started to be processed yet, they charge you $15. Like, it's insane. It's insane. But that's stuff that already was. So why do I think this is a bad idea even, now? It comes back to this discussion with CBCS. With CGC has been the leader in graded comics for a long time. They weren't really rivaled. There was PGX, which never really truly rivaled. Then CBCS came on the scene, and they were doing some stuff different. They were doing well, and they started to gain ground. And I think recently, with the boom in comic collecting, with how much longer CGC is taking, with the increased price of everything, people are starting to be okay with CBCS, right? It's going to take me 6-7 months to get something back from CGC. I'll just send it to CBCS and get it back in 3 months, 4 months, whatever. Because their times are increased too, to be fair, but it's still quicker. And people are also sending in much more stuff, higher volume. And CBCS was cheaper. It was cheaper before the increases, right? So I always felt that CBC, like I'm a CBCS person. My personal stuff, I do CBCS. I have done for a long time. I think it's a better product, but and cheaper and quicker. But I will still do a comparison video. I'll leave all that. Let's just look at mostly facts, right? They are cheaper. They are quicker. Because of this, and this is where I get into a little bit of, I don't know, opinion, but how I think I see the market going is where CGC was here, CBCS is here, the gap is closing. I think over the last few months, the gap is closed, and people are warming up more to CBCS because they are more accessible. They've been cheaper for a little bit, like generally speaking, a CGC book versus a CBCS book, the same book in the same grade. CGC was you could get a little bit more for a CGC book because they were, for whatever reason, viewed as a more respected authority. I disagree with that, but that's the market speaking, right? People are getting CBCS books and noticing, like, wait a second, like, the product itself is about the same. Again, personally, I think it's better, but it's at least almost the same. So people are warming up. So that gap is closing, right? So CBCS is becoming more of a threat. More people are going to CBCS. So what CGC really needs to do, or needed to do, was give people another reason other than the market says CGC is better because that's what it's decided, right? The self-fulfilling prophecy. CGC is preferred because everyone says CGC is preferred. What CGC needed to do is do something to make them stand out even higher and promote people sending to CGC over CBCS even more. Raise the bar, give more reason to send to CGC. Do things like not necessarily decrease prices, but hire more people to match the volume, make the turnaround times better, right? If they could have gotten their turnaround times down lower, right, by hiring more people, again, that has a cost, but the volume is higher, so they're making more money to cover that cost. Keep people coming to CGC, or those people that continually go to CGC. To, like, CBCS is still going up here. CGC needed to, like, bump up like this. What CGC did is took that closing gap and it has, in my opinion, lowered themselves a little bit, but also sent a lot of people over to CBCS and closed that gap even more. Like, this has done nothing but help their closest competitor. I don't think that CGC was in trouble with their old prices. They can't be. There's no way they were in trouble. This is a greed move, and I think it was a really bullheaded move, and it's going to hurt them. Because CBCS, still faster, it is now even cheaper, relatively speaking, right? They didn't increase their grades, so the gap between CBCS and CGC is now more in CBCS's favor. It's ridiculous. So there's that. I think it was a bad move. Now more to how. So the effects of just like your normal person who submits grades is pretty obvious. It costs more. For the most part. Well, I'd say significantly, right? Because not only are the costs per item gone up, but now for what I think was probably the most popular subscription tier, they've taken away the discount. So it's even more. I keep trying to come up with how this actually benefits them in the long run. It's a short-term play. It's a short-term play that I think is going to have long-term negative consequences for the company. But that's their choice. I think they've been so comfortable at being number one, they don't view, it's like when you're on top, you've been on top for so long, you kind of get this ego, I suppose. It's kind of like Diamond, right? Diamond distributors had a monopoly for so long, and they treated customers so poorly. Like, you talk to any comic shop owner about Diamond, and it's nothing but nightmares. But they don't have any choices, right? Because they were the only comic distributor, so they would mess up a lot. They didn't really care. They would ship poorly and all this other stuff. Well, that changed. DC bailed. They found another distributor, and Diamond, from what talking to shop owners, have not changed their ways. They're still like, nope, we're still who we are. We still pack like crap. We still give you the runaround and all that stuff. Like, you have to understand that you can't keep operating business as usual when you no longer don't have any competition. You now have legitimate competition, but you're still acting like you don't. Bad business move. Anyway. So, now the thing that really affects my business, and again, I presume other businesses like this, is they're not giving a whole lot of time before the new prices come into effect. Right? So, the new price, so the old prices will be honored. They gave a week. Right? Any orders that are placed within a week of the announcement will have the old prices, and those orders must be received within a month of that 1 week. Right? So basically you had a month and a week to get the orders in their hands, but the order itself had to be placed within that first week. Now, to a normal person who just does their own stuff, that seems fairly generous. Generous maybe isn't the right word. It seems maybe a little bit more reasonable. Now, in my position, where I have a bunch of customers, and I am backed up. All presses are backed up. Graders are backed up because of this surge of collecting. When I have a customer that wants something pressed and then graded, I write them up an invoice for the bulk, right? There's columns for my fees, and there's columns for CGC's fees, right? It's going to cost you this much to get it pressed and cleaned. It's going to cost this much to get it graded. And I collect all the fees up front. So I collect the CGC fees up front, because at some point they're going to be taken out of my account, and I need that money there when CGC comes knocking and says, all right, it's time to pay. So instead of writing separate invoices of like, okay, here's the invoice for the pressing services, months and months later, here's the invoice for CGC. I've placed the order. Please pay it soon because they're going to charge me soon. I can't hold them off from paying. It's just that much easier to be like, here's what it's going to cost in whole. Give me all of that money now. I don't have to come back to you. I don't have to pressure you to get the CGC payment in because they're going to charge me and I'm going to be overdrawn or whatever. So orders that I had previous, they've already paid these old fees, right? They've paid the $18 because it's $20 with the 10% discount. So they paid $18 for a modern book. They paid me, so I'll, when it's ready, when it's to be sent in, I'll get charged the $18 or whatever. But now, if I don't get this order in, which because I'm so backed up, I normally wouldn't be able to get it in before this 1 month or month and a week cutoff or whatever it is, I'm going to be charged $22, right? Because it's $22 because that's the new cost. And I would no longer get the 10% off. Well, I might still get the 10%. I don't remember when my subscription actually ends. It's actually pretty close. So I would say like I would probably not have the 10% off anymore. So $4, either $4 per a modern book has to come out of my pocket Or I have to go back to the customer and like, sorry, I know that I said it was $18, but it's really $22 now because I can't get your stuff. There's so many books orders in front of you because, of the backup that I can't get your stuff in by this essentially 1 month cutoff time that CGC has allowed us. And I'm a small pressing business. I don't do really any advertising. Most of my work comes from word of mouth, and that's on purpose, right? I don't want I don't want the volume of all these other big pressers. I don't have the time for it. I have another full-time, I have my full-time job, which takes up my 40 hours a week, and I like to have some free time. Where there are some people that, they have a full, like, encompassing comic business where they do the pressing and they own shops or do convention circuits, like where that is their main gig and pressing is an arm of it, right? They kind of have more time for all of that. But when I have my normal 9-to-5 job, I have to be focused on that, right? So the pressing business is something I do in my after hours spare time, and it takes up a lot of time. So I'm fine with the volume that I do, but I imagine these bigger pressers. I've heard tales of them being like 6 months out, right? They're 6 months behind on pressing. I'm probably 2 months, which it's more than I'd like to be, but it's the way of the world, the way that the comic boom has happened. I get it. It's fine. And I tell customers up front, like, look, I'm happy to take your order. Just know that we're in a boom right now, and pressing takes time, right? That's the biggest component of pressing is time. You can't rush it. You can't rush time. Books need so much time in the press, period. It is what it is. So now these orders that I had, 2, maybe 3 months to get out the door, now have to all be done and out the door in a month. That's rough. That's rough. And in some cases, it's not possible, right? Time. You can't manipulate time. Now, I can do things that I don't normally do, right? It is a side business. I allow myself some amount of free time in my life. I think everyone is deserving of that. I can do things like, well, I can stay up later, or normally I'd go to bed like at 10 o'clock. I can stay up an extra couple hours every day to get another round of books in the press. I don't really want to. That does decrease my personal quality of life. I can make sure, just in order to make sure I get as many rounds in the press a day, I can do things, right? Like, I was going to spend time with this friend, but I can skip that because my timer's going to go off, which means I can take books out or flip them or put new books in or something like that. And I can do that, right? I don't want to do that. I don't want to decrease my quality of life for the side business. Now I have to, right? Because I can go to the customers and say, look, sucky deal. CGC raised their prices. I told you it's going to be $18. Now it's $22. Fork it over. I don't want to do that. I did, looking at the orders that I have, looking at the timeline to see what is possible. It's going to be very difficult, but I do believe that I can pull off. Everyone who has current CGC orders, I will be able to get the orders in and get them in their hands in time. I hope. Again, they say in our hands by 5 weeks, but realistically, given time for shipping, I have to get them out at least a week ahead of that. So I have to sacrifice a lot of my own personal time and my own, I don't know, personal schedule or whatever, in order to meet this deadline. So it's kind of insult to injury, right? Like, not only you're raising prices sort of unnecessarily, in my opinion, but for those in my position and those in worse position than me, it's caused a real problem with this timeline. It would have been nice if they gave, like, I don't know, 3 months maybe. Even then, I think some people would have had a tough time in meeting that. But it's completely, not only the price increase, I think, sort of deaf to the market, the timeline is deaf to the market. I think there's a number of people in my situation, whether they be pressers or comic book stores or just flippers or whatever, that have a lot of stuff that needs to get sent out, and that timeline is too short. It's narrow-sighted. It's not thinking of the market itself and the people in the market. It just goes to show how little they actually care for their customers. It's just business. It's just the money, and that seems to be it. And I understand all businesses are about money. Like, the businesses wouldn't exist if it wasn't to make money. But I found, in the way that I personally run my business, is you pay attention to customers, you treat them right, and that is an asset to the company, to the business. And it brings people back. It makes good connections. It's just smart. I mean, it's not just smart business, but it's also just kind of part of being, like, I don't know, being a good person, I guess, being thoughtful, being understanding. But it's put people like me in quite a pinch. Now, I've contacted customers and be like, look, I think you're going to be okay. I do think that I'll be able to get the stuff out. But I think there's a lot of out there that might not be able to do that. Though for those of my customers, and again, I assume this is probably true for other pressers, those that are most negatively impacted, the customers that are most negatively impacted, are actually those that aren't sending in things to CGC. There's a couple of hard discussions I've had to have with customers and saying, look, CGC dropped this bomb. I have to get all CGC orders out in time, which means your order, which is not bound for CGC, either they're not getting them graded or they're going to CBCS, I have to tell them, I have to push your order back in the queue because I need to pull forward everything that is CGC bound because it has to meet this deadline, or else I have to upcharge customers. And I don't want to do that. Would I be in my right to? Yeah, I think so, but I don't want to. And it would cause a headache and all of that. So, I do a first come, first serve basis. When I have an order, as soon as the customer pays, that's when it goes into the queue. And that way it's first come, first serve. First pay, first serve. So there are customers that had paid ahead of some other CGC customers where I've had to push them back because that CGC one, that needs to be pulled forward because I need to meet the deadline. So I've had to contact those customers and say, look, I know that your order has nothing to do with CGC, but I have to push it back, and it sucks, and I'm sorry, but it's out of my control. It's out of my control. It's out of my hands. Now, the customers I've contacted with have been understanding. They're kind of like, oh, that sucks, but they understand, right? And I appreciate that. It's kind of what's nice about being a small business is and getting business mostly from word of mouth, or you know, dealing with them personally and them, you know, becoming customers and stuff like that is I mostly deal with really cool people. You know, I haven't had any problems with anybody as of yet, which is great. So the people that I deal with are usually they're just they're cool collectors, and they've been understanding. I hate having that conversation, but CGC has forced me to have to do this, and I don't appreciate it. And you know, I had to put out an announcement saying, you know, look, current customers that are in the queue are paid up. CGC orders, I am pretty positive that I'll be able to get your stuff out, and any new CGC orders from this point on are going by the new payment structure. Because any new orders coming in, I can get my current orders out in time. I'm pretty sure. New orders coming in, there's no way. There's no way. So yeah, that's what it is. It sucks on so many levels. It sucks on just the prices being increased in the first place, which again, it seems like a real bad idea on their part. Also, I think it was the day that CGC did that, CBCS sent an email saying, hey guys, you know we have 10% off our current prices, which are already lower than CGC. Brilliant move, CBCS. I really appreciated that. That was really good. But the bigger issue is that timeline, which is totally tone deaf to businesses like myself, which you'd think they'd be more thoughtful of, because it's so much volume comes from those sort of mass customers, where they're either, you know, these flippers where they just have, or resellers or whatever you want to call them, that send a bunch of stuff in all at once in big chunks or very often. Pressers who are sending in orders for a bunch of people. We send them a lot of business, you know, and to set these dates, which is completely oblivious or inconsiderate to those types of people, businesses, entities, or whatever that gives them so much business, is just like, you really just don't care. You don't care. So, I mean, I expect that gap to close so much more and a lot quicker than what I thought it was going to between CGC and CBCS. I'm already a CBCS person. I've been hearing a lot of people who were previously CGC people are now going to go to CBCS. So it's already happening. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It was a rough few days after that announcement got put out. It was rough. It was rough. And I'm looking forward to a rough next 3-4 weeks, making sure all the stuff gets done that needs to get done. You know, not rushing anything. It's just taking more out of my personal time to make sure that these orders get filled. So I don't have to collect more money from customers that have already paid. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Anyway, that's it. My thoughts, some facts, some opinions, but that is kind of the fallout of this thing, as it affects not just normal customers, which again I think CGC was completely inconsiderate of, which is unfortunate. But it happened. It is what it is. That's it. Please let me know your thoughts. If you were on the fence between CGC and CBCS, does this push you towards CBCS? If you are a diehard CGC person, where does that put you? You know, what are your thoughts on it? Are you just kind of okay with it? Are you upset about it, but you're still solid CGC? Just let me know what you think. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this. So, like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff, ring the notification bell. And of course, don't forget to make yours Titan. This video was brought to you by Titan Comic Pressing. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Titan Comic Pressing LLC.